Absolutely. I mean, everything was downtown. The drugstores were downtown. The department stores were downtown. The gas stations were downtown.
I remember coming home from ball games, and when I walk up Main Street, every merchant would probably come out and speak to you. Everybody knew everybody.
Hi, I'm Michael Barrett with Neighborhood TV, and I'm downtown here outside the Mooresville Museum, just a half block from Main Street, where in just a matter of days, the town will be holding its first 4th of July parade in some 47 years. So in recognition of that, we sat down with several longtime Mooresville residents and natives to talk about their memories of Main Street decades ago and how it has changed from then to now. All right, so David, we're here at the intersection of Main Street and Center Avenue downtown. Give me just a brief history of the origins of the town of Mooresville and how the depot came into play there.
Okay, shortly after the Revolutionary War, many families from Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland made their way down the Great Road, which ran from Philadelphia to Savannah. Many of the settlers stopping here, Mooresville branching off of the Great Road. John Franklin Moore's family was a part of that group, and John Franklin Moore became a landowner, eventually owning up over 600 acres. Everything we see here was his.
Mooresville has a lot of new faces these days, but natives of the town retain vivid memories of Main Street as it looked when they were growing up here in the 1950s and 60s.
When my grandma would have me to come and mow her yard, she was very frugal, had to mow the grass real low to the ground, but as my reward, we would walk up the street to the old City Cafe. In fact, here at the museum, I think we've got the old sign that used to be on the back of the building there. But my early memories are, going to eat at the City Cafe. And then when I was a kid growing up, George Malcolm owned George's Taxi, and they lived right across the street from us on Cherry Street, which is now Ardell Avenue. But George had a little taxi stand right. If you were going down Main Street, you had Belk Department Store and Leonard's Jewelers and the State Theater.
We always enjoyed Belk's. And if the store were there again right now, I could go in and run the store where the departments were, get on the elevator and ride it up as if it had never left. The depot, my brother's a big train enthusiast. The depot's always been a point of interest for us, and the Isaac Harris house, which is beside the library. The Sprinkles lived there for years, and it houses Holmesley's law firm now. When we were kids, we would mow their yard and the trailer park behind it, and the Sprinkle would make us tomato sandwiches and give us $5 for our work. It was great.
The Charles Mack clothing store, the Max was good. I was in class with a bunch of his children and like that. Then it was Price Miller that ran the drugstore. And we went to Belk's and Clinic Pharmacy, and it was just, it was Bar and Grill, which it was in a 5 and dime store. Back then we had 5 and 10 cent stores back then, and it was, we was family.
For me, Main Street was all about John Mack & Son, which was our family department store. There were 5 kids in our family, and we all worked in that store. After school, on weekends, summers during college, but Christmas holidays were especially memorable because we would see, our friends, neighbors, people from all over the area that would come into town. It was it's a festive time anyway. Longtime
residents of Mooresville can identify a handful of iconic landmarks along Main Street that have embodied the town over the years.
2 are no longer with us, but I would go back to say Belk's again and People's Furniture, which was adjacent to it. The McNeely service station is where CVS is now located. It was a beautiful building. Hated to see it go. And also the depot. You can't get away from the depot without thinking of downtown Mooresville.
Well, I'll say Westmore and Main, but they say it ain't really the square. I think David probably tell you the square down here. But I always assumed that was the square because whenever the parade came, that's where we always gathered. So I always call that the square, and that's the place that I know you were gonna find people familiar standing in that square, especially people of color. Mm-hmm. That was a place that if you're looking for your friends you ain't seen in a while, if you went to what I call the square, we would be in that area somewhere.
What made that a good spot to watch the parades that you come through?
Well, to me, it was the center point. And it was where, when the marching bands come down, that's where they showed off at. A&T and Johnson C. Smith and Central. And so when they get there, that's where the fun begins.
As Main Street struggled in the 1980s and 90s, many wondered whether it would bounce back.
You began to see the town slowing down as, or at least the core of the town slowing down as businesses developed out by the interstate, as the lake grew.
Because I can remember the day after the Belk moved out to where it is now on 150, and the buildings were torn down where People's Furniture and Belk and the jewelry store that I worked at and the theater I worked at, it was just a vacant lot. This would have been in the mid-'80s, and I can remember going downtown on a Saturday afternoon. About the only business being open would have been Kelly Clothing Company, and it was just like a ghost town.
But with downtown growth skyrocketing over the last decade, Main Street's potential has never seemed higher.
I think that the trend will continue. I think that we have an influx of a lot of families that have moved here from other states. And you know, now you can't get a parking place sometimes on Saturday or Sunday, and I get excited about that. I mean, I am excited that, you know, my son lives here and works with me at the funeral home. My daughter lives in Mebane, but you know, my grandchildren, I mean, there's opportunities for them here if they choose to continue to be a part of this community.
That excitement extends to anticipating the town's first 4th of July parade since 1976.
For many years I thought and wished that Mooresville would try to have a 4th of July parade. I mean, dress up the town, try to get some bands in here, and just have a good old-time celebration. The 1976 bicentennial parade, I remembered as a kid riding my bicycle with little red, white, and blue streamers coming off the handlebars. I mean, it was just a great time to be a kid, especially at that time. And I'd love for kids to have that feeling themselves today.
For Neighborhood TV, I'm Michael Barrett.